Welcome to this Arnall-Culliford knitwear tutorial. It's part of our year of techniques, 12 patterns to help you to upgrade your knitting skills. Today I'm going to show you how to twist your yarns when you do Intarsia. It's actually quite a simple technique, but I know that it's one that makes lots of people slightly nervous, so I'm hoping we're going to show you today how straightforward it can be. So we use the Intarsia process for working more than one colour when we want the colours to be blocked in a particular area. We use ferrule when the colours will be used right the way across the row, and we carry all the colours we're using right to the end of the row. In Intarsia we just have them separated into blocks, so you can see this is the beginning of a shawl, and we've got a block of the dark slate and then the pale grey and then the blue on the end, so we don't need the dark colour right at this end of the row. And it's very straightforward. All you have to do is remember to put the old yarn over the new yarn each time. So let's start work. We're going to knit along until we reach the new colour. I have some markers set up in my knitting, and I have a marker to show me where I'm swapping to the new colour. And when I get there, I work the last stitch in the old colour. I'm going to slip the marker over, and then I'm going to pass the old colour, the dark, over the top of the new one, and then I continue to knit. Always give that first stitch in the new colour a little tug just to make sure it's all snugged up, and then we keep going along the row. Until we come to the next marker in a moment, and then we'll do the same process again. So that's the last stitch in the pale grey. I'm moving the marker, and then I'm going to put the old colour, the pale grey, over the new one. Pick the new one up from underneath. And then carry on going, giving it a tug on the first one, and whooshing along to the end of the row. One of the things that puts people off Intarsia is how tangled up your yarns can get at the end of a row of working. With this sort of design that doesn't use too many colours, it's not too bad, but it's definitely worth reorganising your wool before you start the next row. So let's bring that one back to there, that one across, that one's in the middle. And now we're ready to work our wrong side row. You can see that the yarns are trapped by the new colour there, which is what keeps the two pieces of fabric from having big holes or being completely separate. So on the wrong side it's exactly the same. We work along until we come to the marker. Now we're purling on the main part of the shawl, and when we come to the colour change, all we have to do again is to put the old colour over the new one. Here we go, last stitch in the old colour, slip the marker, first stitch in the new colour, put the old over the new, purl the first stitch, there we go, give it a little tug, make sure it's all snug, and keep going. When you're considering an Intarsia project, it's worth looking at the type of colour blocking that's used. If you've got a few stitches of lots of different colours all close to each other, that's obviously going to be quite a lot more tricky than this type of Intarsia where you're working with big blocks of colour. And in fact, one of the things that makes this particularly straightforward is the fact that you're always using the same colour over itself, so we're not having to carry the yarn in either direction. It's always, if it's pale grey here, I'm going to be knitting it with the pale grey when I come to it. So we're swapping again, old colour over the new, work that first stitch, give it a little tug, and carry on to the end of the row. Once you've worked a little section and you've untangled your yarns, swap them back underneath. It can be really helpful to weave in your ends, because when you weave in your ends, it helps to keep the joins all neat and tidy. So that's going to be the second thing I'm going to show you. So to weave in your ends, thread the end of the yarn onto a tapestry needle, and then we can use the end of the yarn to weave along the join between the two colours, which not only keeps the end neat and very difficult to spot from the right side, but it also just helps to tighten up the first stitch there where you had introduced the new colour. So I'm going to take it up and down all the way along this join spot. Just one more should do it. Great thing about a yarn like Cumulus that's fairly fluffy is that it holds itself in place quite nicely. Just gently pull on the surrounding fabric to make sure it's not puckering it. And if you look from the right side, you're not going to see that at all. I tend to leave the ends a little bit long and trim them after blocking so they don't pop through to the right side of the work. So there you have your Intarsia. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you'd like to know more about A Year of Techniques, do visit our website acknitwear.co.uk, and why not try something new today?